Okay, so just to recap the few practicals we have done, in our last class we learned how to set up your analytics dashboard, right? With the recommended framework called Jupyter Notebook. And don't forget, I also told us that we need three sets of applications or software to be installed or to put in place for you to be able to analyze data with Python. And I started by mentioning the server's application, which is the Anaconda, which harbors most of the framework or the IDE that could be used in the field of data science or data analytics. Now, after that, we learned how to set up an interface or a framework where we can bring all our data components, including the library, in one place so that we can harmonize their communications. That was what led to what we have in this row 5, where we imported our libraries. And I told us that libraries they are nothing but collection of functions, which means that Python has taken its own time to assemble these functions and name them with different names. So when you import pandas as PD, you are indirectly saying that you are calling in the whole of that container named pandas, where Python has stored some data analysis functions. You want it to be present in your notebook. Now, we also imported another library, which is called NumPy. Don't forget, I also told us that each of them has their targets. The set of functions that are assembled in pandas, they are different from the ones that are assembled in NumPy. So I said the NumPy offer us functions that will enable us to exploit large data formats and also to frame the data set in a more presentable and readable manner. Then we imported this line just in case as we proceed, we get to a point where we want to develop our data set here instead of calling data that have been computed with a cell here, just like we did now. And then we also move to how to load a CSV data format into our notebook, where I explain this syntax, which means that the data one is the name of what? Our data. That which acts as a variable that is holding the whole of the data frame here in Python. And then I said to view the data that must have been stored in a variable, you simply call the name of that variable in the next line. And that was how we outputted what? This data. So the next thing we did was to learn how to load another different what? File format, which is Excel. Then which led to the application of read underscore Excel as against read underscore what? CSV that we use for. That is only the difference. Now, that was what we did. So it is now assumed that you know how to load your data into your Python Jupyter what? Notebook for analysis. So what is the next approach after you have been able to load your data in here? What is the next thing you should do as a professional data analyst? Which you will start by inspecting your data. You start by studying your data to understand the variables the data is made up of. Because until you have that understanding, you may not be able to come up with reasonable analysis questions that will lead toward deriving positive insight that will assist or guide the stakeholder in making smart decisions. Are you with me, sir? Good. So now, in doing this, in studying our data, we are not going to be using our eyes to study the data. We are going to be deploying Python functions, Python attributes to do that. And that is why I have this particular slide here. So I will just take all through it. So I actually have two different slides. So at some point, I'll switch from one slide to the other based on what we are dealing with. So the first slide is where I talk about what CSV data loading into what the notebook. We cover that. The second slide is where I talk about how to import what pandas and what numpy, which are what the libraries. The third slide is where I talk about creating a data frame. That is what loading. So what we're actually doing when you say data one, PD dot, you are actually creating a data frame. Are you with me? Yes. We cannot call that a dictionary. We cannot call that a list. Let me prove it to you, because from our basic Python class, I taught you Python multi-structure data type, right? The one that can hold multiple values. But sir, does it mean that we can say that this particular data set is a list, or is a tuple, or is a set, or even dictionary? The answer is no. This is beyond any of those what level. Though they are in the same field, the same domain. They are all advanced what data type, but we cannot refer to them as dictionary. You know why? This each column, sir, each column is a dictionary. Do you know why? Because if you remember the syntax of dictionary, it has key and what value. So this state becomes what? The key. While the values under it, Abia and the rest, they are the values. So you cannot say that this is a dictionary. This is more than dictionary. So once the collection of dictionary in one container, it is called data frame. Did you get it now? The collection of dictionaries. Yes. So this, what we are seeing here, we cannot call this, we call it what? Data frame. Why? Because we have the key as label and the value under them, which is what? So the whole of employees name is one dictionary. Employee ID is another what? Dictionary. And if you could remember from Excel, I have broken down the difference between data sets and data what? Frame. Did you still remember? There are two different things. Now, when you are using the term data sets, your focus is different from what? When you are using the term data frame. When you are using data sets, you are simply talking about the collection of data series and objects. So what are data series? Data series are the number, the record. Like now, this is series what? O, series 0, series 1. So the records in a data set are referred to what? Data series. Now, objects are the label, or which you can also call the features. Like now, if I want to know how many data objects, how many objects are in this data frame, I have to start by counting the headers. Employee's name is what? One object. Employee's ID is what? The second object. State is another object. Set is another object. Now, sir, instead of you doing this, you could just run a function. It's part of what we are talking about. Why will I waste my time counting when I know there is a function that can give me that information, that can calculate or analyze my data frame? Now, let me now explain the frame now. When you use the word data frame, look at the word frame. It means you are emphasizing on the word, the width. and the what? The height of the data set. Because sometimes when you are given data sets, you need to understand the frame length. Because the frame length is what will actually tell you how many analysis you are going to do, or what are the potential or the possible analysis. If I'm a consultant now, let's say a company consult me to analyze their data, and I want to know the basis for charging them. I want to charge them based on the frame of the data. Because if I'm given a data set with just two headers, the frame length is short, and I'm limited to the number of what? Insight. I would drop because all my insight analysis will be based on just two headings. Now, you cannot compare the amount of insight you will derive from a data frame with just two headings and data frame with what? 15 headings. It means I'm going to be engaged more. I'm going to look for more insights across what? The headers. So in Python, if I want to know the number of headings and the number of record in a data frame, now you understand the terms now. So I will just do something like this. Part of what? What are we doing now? This one is that salary payroll now. I thought you have it. If I'm not giving it to you, maybe I'll give it to you. But I'll work with one of the one. I think is what? You don't have any of this salary. I think you must have downloaded the healthcare from Cargo when we started the cell. Good, don't worry. So I can always give it to you. But at least I just want to make sure that you have some of the data I have. So now, look up here. I will try to give us a picture of what we want to do. So what we want to actually do today now is this. This particular data set, which is the salary data set, let's assume is given to you as an analyst or a data scientist to analyze. Sir, you will agree with me that you are not the one that collected the data. So therefore, you just need to do what? To understand it. And one of the things you are going to do is by knowing how many objects are in this data set. Another thing again that is ideal for you to find out is how many records are in this whole what? Data set. Since I just told us now that data set means the collection of data objects and what? The series. Where the objects represent the label, the headers, and the series represent what? The record. So we use the numbers of headers to measure what? The length. And what? The number of record to measure what? The height. So the art of using the headers and the rows to measure the length and the height of data is called data framing. Are you getting it now? So then, good, and the record. That means what? You are framing what? The data. So when we say data frame, it means that what? You are acknowledging the collection of the headers and what? The rows. So now, let's quickly focus on our assignment for this section. So remember the concept of comments. I told us that as programmer, you must always explain your code, either to yourself or to the third party with the help of what? Comments. It's very important. Yes. So now, what exactly we are about to learn or we are learning is what? Data inspection. Data inspection. Data inspection. Slash cleaning. Slash cleaning. Now, I want us to understand something, that in this field, there are fundamental rules that every analyst must observe. One of them is that you spend 80% of your time to clean your data, and you spend just 20% to analyze. The reason is that it's garbage in, garbage out. If the data is not clean, just know that your analysis is rendered what? Useless. That is why we don't rush what? This cleaning aspect. And that is why I want to take my time to explain all the data cleaning functions and how to deploy them on your data set before we start what? Analysis. So But the first thing we are going to do is for us to start studying the data. That is why I target what? Data what? Inspection. So I want to inspect this data. Which of the data you want to inspect, sir? You need to know the name of the frame. Here we want to inspect what? Data 2. Data 2 is the one that is holding what? The whole of this salary payroll. So I need to have good. Okay, don't worry. To avoid any conflict, don't worry. Okay, no problem, no problem. So let's work with the one you know. You have this very one. This is the healthcare, right? Good. No problem. So that we can be on the same page. So whatever I'm doing, you can be doing it. Now, the healthcare data is acknowledged here in Python as what? Data 1. Right? Your own must have been a different name. No problem. Now, you just have to know the name of your data set. Okay, let's focus as usual. Then I'll give us time to press it out. Now, you shouldn't bother about the data now. Any one of them, you have been able to, the same content we have there now, only use different method to bring them in. Good. So now, I want to focus more on what I'm doing here. I will give you time to practice, except if you notice that I'm slow, you can be doing it together. Now, we want to inspect the data, and we already know the name of our what? Data. So for me to confirm, I will just type what? Data what? 1, just to invoke the data again. We want to be 100% sure. Okay, good. To show that what? This is actually what is representing. Now, for you, the first data inspection function or attribute we want to confirm is an attribute that will help us to know how many columns and how many records are in this data set. Good, data frame, good. So now let's say the first task is what? How many, so this is the question we are asking now. How many headers? How many headers and rows in the data 1 frame? So this is a question. So as a data analyst, how do you answer this question? Is very simple. You are going to consult a Python function, or let me just add it to it. Okay, let me say here, using, this is where I'm providing the name of what? The function we are going to use to get it solved. Using Python attributes. I will tell you the difference between attributes and a method or function. Using Python attributes called dot shape is an attribute. Look at it here. Yeah, dot shape is an attribute. Now, what is an attribute, sir? An attribute is a name that provides additional information about your data. So we are about using it to provide what? Some details about what? This particular data set. Now, if it is a method or function, it will carry this. Once it carries parenthesis bracket, it's no longer an attribute. It's now what? A function or a method. So when you see me using attributes, it means that you don't need to open what? Bracket. So it's just there to give additional information. It's not there to actually what? Perform what? Any calculation. Like mathematical what? Calculation. So now, what will be the syntax? What will be the syntax? Remember what I told us about syntax in programming. So can you remind us again, what is the syntax? Syntax is the set of rules or the set of rules that governs writing of code under a particular program or in programming language. So Python has its own format of writing what? Its code. That is the rule. And if you disobey that rule, then you are bound to get what? Error. Exactly. So the syntax, I'm about to tell you the format, the way you have to write it. So the syntax is this. The syntax is that you start by calling what? The name of your data set, or let me just put it what? Data frame name. Data frame name. Then you will not concatenate. What did I say is concatenation? You are joining it. Go by using the word, the period, full stop. Then followed by the attribute itself, which is what? Shape. That is all.
What's that?
Which one? Yeah. Okay, data frame dot shape.
No, data frame.
Here, right? Data frame name. Yes, data frame name. Are you following? Dot shape. So now let me execute it now to get it and put the expected word output. So like I specified in the syntax, the data frame name is what? Data one. Then dot what? Shape. Then you execute it by pressing shift and what? Enter. So look at it here. So what is this simply telling you and I? That what this data set has 55,500 what? Rows and 15 what? Columns. So we have been able to expect it now. At least we're able to find out, okay, now, wow. So I have up to 15 features or headers to work with. That is to tell you the intensity of what the insights probably are going to derive. Exactly. Okay. So I will not allow you to apply notebook. It is disconnected from some of those libraries. So you are just like refreshing the memory so that you can reconnect. Okay, so I believe this is an important information you need regarding to the data. So all this that we are dealing with, according to the order, or you can change the order. You can decide to go for the one you want to take now before this. But definitely, when you load any data sets into any framework, be it Python, be it Excel, spreadsheet, be it SQL, it is in our custom as data analysts to do what? To take some time to understand the data. Because we know how helpful it could be. When you understand your data, you will see the way you'll be communicating the findings. Are you with me? Okay. So you will see the way you'll be able to communicate. If you have ever seen some data analysts when they are presenting their findings, you see the way they will be talking about the data as if they are the one that generated it. And you just be surprised. How did they get to know everything about the data set? It's because they spent quality time to what? Understand it. So every insight that they are bringing out, they can defend it. Exactly. Are you with me, sir? Okay. So now let's go to the next one. The next one I want us to look at is there are some specific ones that are not in the slides, so I want to quickly take care of them. So let's assume that you think we have this very one in the slides. Let me see if I can have it here. This is the dot shape that we just did now. We still have a couple of them for data inspection. So we have dot column. That's the next one. So the dot column help us to extract, to display, or to call out only the headers in your data set, just because you want to focus on them. Now let me connect it to the previous one. Now this one did a kind of counting analysis without showing us, let's see this 15 column. Let's see what this 15 column. The reason is that when I bring them out from the entire data set, it will be easy for me to study them. But when they are with the data set, at some point, I may not be seeing some due to the what, how wide the data is. So the next data inspection command we want to look at is how to display, how to display only the headers in a what? Data frame. How to display only the header in a data frame. So what is the tax here? The syntax rather, the syntax here will be the same format, data set or data frame name, then concatenate it with a method called dot column. Dot columns. It is you can say that it is an attribute because it does not carry what? The parentheses brackets. So once that is done, now let's implement it now. We still know our data set name to what? Data one, right? We will simply concatenate it with what? The attribute called column. There should be S there because it's not one column you are calling. So now I execute it. Now look at what happened. It brings out only what? The headers. You see it now? So with this now, you will now be able to focus. Now, if you want to confirm whether the initial code actually did the right thing, you can manually count from here. Now that you have been able to what? To call them out. So if I start counting now, name is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That was what the sheet gave to us as a total number. So now let me wait for you to apply before I proceed. Um, let's go back to our slides and look at the next one. Now, the next one is .info. This one is a function. You can see that it carries what? Brackets. Now, the .info, as the name implies, info is to give you a comprehensive, is to give you a comprehensive details about that data, including some of the information we have gotten through the dot shape and the dot column will still be provided in .info. So it's your choice. When you are given data, go, you have a more summarized what details. It will break it down and tell you up to the type of value, the type of data you have in each of the column, and also inform you if you have any column where you have missing value. So it's a total detailing of what? The data set, which you can get what? Through this .info. So let's go to our development environment. So what are we learning here now is what? How to display total, let me use that word, total details, so that you know that this one is more detailed than the other one. Total details about a loaded data frame. So what is the syntax? The syntax will be the data set name, data set or data frame. Good. You can actually use them interchangeably. Now, data frame name .info. Good, you are getting it now. .info. That's the syntax. Then you execute. So our data set or data frame name is data.
What will we put inside?
Nothing.
Just nothing.
Yes, we are not passing any parameter inside. So .info. Info like this. So look at it first. Now I'll see that give you time to. So once you run it, you see a more detail. Now I have to spend some time to explain it. Because one thing is for you to use this function to exploit this information. Another thing is for you to understand what exactly is presenting. So which I want to quickly walk us through now. Now let's start from here. Class, you can see it now. That data set that is providing its info is seen as what? data frame. So do you understand that? Just like the way we're running type that was telling us list or what tuple. So the first thing is giving you is that what this where it derived this information from is what a data frame. Now the next one is what range index. What is the index? The numerical what representation of what the value as what a rows. Now look at what we got when we ran which one? Remember the attribute that we ran that gave us what this value 55,000. What was the value against? Yes, the attributes that we ran that give us this information is dot shape. So the work of dot shape is already wrapped in what? Dot info. So if you are saving time, if you don't have time, there's no point of you going through what? Just do dot info. You get what? Most of the details you want. Now look at entry here. 0 to 55,499. I believe you understand what I mean. This is equivalent to what? 1 to good. So this one represents what? The first one. Now look at this here. Data what? Column. How many column we got there? 15. Good. Now this is where it listed out what? The total number of what? Column.
0.
Good. Now this is one thing you should always look at for, sir, so that you don't have to run an attribute called what? Dot isna is another attribute we are going to discuss. Isna is to tell you whether there is a missing value, whether under each of these columns there are cells or there is a cell that does not have a value. You know, when you are computing record in a cell, there will be some cell that you just leave blank. Maybe there's no value there. Maybe the customer did not buy a product. So therefore you left it what? Blank. So when you load that data in Python, Python will automatically interpret those empty cells that you left in a cell as what? Not a number, which means what? Missing value. So now, how do I know whether there's a missing value somewhere? Look at this. If this number that I'm having under name is different from what I have under another column, then it suggests that what? There is a missing value. Are you getting me?
Yes.
Now, for example, now where you have under name, we have 15,500. And then when you now come to the column H, you're now having something less than that. What does that tell you? That there is a cell in what? H column without value. Good. I'm just telling you. Good. I mean, okay, now look up, sir, just to know what I'm saying. I know I have such a data here. Oh, we don't have it here. Okay, let me load. Let's call that one I sent to you, which is that customer, right? I sent you customer, but I'm not sure if I have it here. Let me see if I have it here. I don't have it here. Okay, let me not bother. But I need to bring it here. Where did I got it from? It's very important because some of these things we need to be confirming them. There's need for us to call it here. So start calling your own any of those data sets that I sent to you. I want to use. No. Yes, you just minimize here. Go. The data is already inside what? Inside your folder, right?
Yes.
Now all you need to do is just to do what? Good, and then you continue. My own, I want to bring it to my folder. It's not there. Good. Exactly. Good. Now let me just go and bring my own into my folder first. Here I got it from this. Let me see. I think that value. So that's one I'm working with. Okay, so I have them here. So let me just take both of them. Then locate my root folder, which is on desktop, executive folder that time. So let me just add the data here. Go back to my development environment. Once I refresh, it should be here now. Desktop, executive class. So I have the customer both in CSV and in Excel format. So let me quickly read it here. So I will not say, let me just name it customer data. Customer equals to PD because I've already loaded my library. So I don't have to repeat the library loading again. So I will just say what? Since I'm reading a CSV version, I will say what? Dot what? Sorry, underscore CSV. Now is a function and then quote the name of the record. Now, this is another way. You don't need to go and start copying that part. I actually show you that one as one of the methods. I'm going to show you the other ones. Now, next time you want to call your data set, that one is an option. If that one did not work, you can also come and use this method of calling the name of the data. So just make sure that you know the name of the data, which is what? Customers. Right? Good. You will just come here and type customers. This is another shortest way of doing it. Then remember that you must include the extension, which is what? Dot what? CSV. So once I run it now, it will acknowledge it. Once it does not output any error, it means that what the data is present. Now we'll just call what? Customer. Now you will see NAN. This is the reason why I brought this data. Because look at the NAN here. Which means that what? Not a number, which means missing value. Which means that if you open this record now, let me go and do that because you need to understand all this. Good. That's the reason why I brought it now. Dot info. Now, which is what? Customer, right? Customer dot what? Info. Customer dot info. Data frame object has no attribute was, so I made mistake. Oops. Can you see what I was talking about now? Because you have 6 here instead of 8. So which means that what? Under this column, followers, there are missing value here. Good. So now that is, so I think I was still explaining the what? The result of what? The dot if. Now let me also explain here. No. Look at this here. No. Which means that what? There is as the no means what? No empty.
No.
Yeah, that is
not empty.
Not empty.
So if there is empty there,
that is what you will know. Yes, good.
Let's go and see it.
Now, if you check this one now, where is it here? No, what is telling you that this is the column where you should know whether you have what? Empty. And that is what you have been able to what? To use this 6 that is different from other. You are expected to have the same number of what? Record under each column.
Okay.
Good. So if one is different from the other, something is wrong. Now, counts. This is the whole of this is one giving you what? Each of them and the rest of them. The D type means what? Data type. So Python is interpreting name as what? Object. Is interpreting what? Age as what? Float. Remember from basic knowledge, when we did primitive data, we have string, right? We have a number data type. Under number data type, so we have integer and what? Float. And I said integer means what? Whole number. Why float means what? Now, we will get to know why he's seeing this as float. Because you can see it now. Look at it now. Dots, right now. It's correct. They are not just one number. They have 19 points. It's a float number. So you can see that Python is correct with what. Then here, the amount of space the whole of this data is occupying in Python memory is what? 580 what? Bytes, not even a kilobyte. That's why it's, now let's compare it to this other one. You can see now this one is in what? Megabytes. So this will give you an insight to what? To the weight. To the weight of this data in Python. Because now you have stored it in what? That variable. And that is why it's able to analyze what? The volume of space is taking. Is that clear now?
This thing is not affecting your computer memory.
Or where? No. Every program has what we call the cache. I think I mentioned it the other time. The cache is allocated processing space
for every programming language you are running. That is why when you purchase a flash drive, if the level is 2 gig, by the time you slot it in, you will now be seeing 1 point something. What has happened to the remaining percentage has gone for the processing. So the processor will always take some space out of your available space for processing the content in that device. So verify now so that we can take. Let's go back to our slide and look at another data inspection. So let's look at ISNA. Let's quickly look at ISNA. This is what I was talking about, where you find missing value or where you are not sure. You want to know whether there are some cells where there are missing value. So what is the syntax? We are coming to this one, but we are taking this first. There's a reason why I included this. Now, but let's focus on ISNA. So ISNA is another data inspection or cleaning function. Good. This is how to check missing value. How to check missing value. How do you know whether there are some places, there are some rows within your data set or frame where there are missing value? Because it's very dangerous that you proceed with your analysis while you are still having what? Missing value. And the funny part of this is that sometimes they can contradict some of the functions you may likely deploy on this data to get some insights. So how to check your data frame for missing values. So the syntax is, are you with me? The syntax is the name of your data set. That's what data frame name dot ISNA. Okay. Now the application, the data set name. Let's use this one that have a missing value. The one we just called it now, which is a customer. So I'll simply do customer dot ISNA. So once you execute it, it will display everything as what? False. So anywhere you see false, it means that what? There is no missing value. Anywhere you see true, like here now. These are the position of these ones that you were seeing here before. But sir, if I run this ISNA on that data, which is much, let me tell you why you have to run that second script that I have there. If you run it on data 1, you are going to have some set of value routes. For example, now, which is what? Data 1 dot what? ISNA. Look at what happened here. It means that what? The framework cannot display 55,000 at once. So it's folded some. So, sir, this one is very dangerous because, one, you cannot assume that you are seeing false, and conclude that there is no missing value. What about those ones that you are not seeing? So you must look for a way of displaying only rows where there are what? Missing value. Wherever they are, let those ones be displayed so that there can be enough space to display them. Are you getting it? That is the reason why we have this second line. So this one will go into the data and display only rows where you have missing value. Are you getting it? Okay, so let me just copy it to make our work faster. So the next topic will now be, which is still part of this, is how to display only rows with missing how to display rows with what? Missing what? Values. With missing values. So this is the syntax. So if you look at this syntax carefully, please pay attention. I'll give you time. So if you look at the syntax carefully, you will agree with me. Look up here. You will agree with me that we are concatenating isna and what? .any. So the isna is the one that first of all what? Is one that will check for the missing value. While .any is the one that we select, that will display where is equal to only what? The missing value.
Dot any, what is the other
As this equals to 1.
They must write it down.
Yes, that as equal to 1, it means that what? You are searching for value across rows. That's the standard. Now, look at it here. So the syntax will be, the data set name we apply. Let's apply it on this one that we have missing value, which is what? Customer, right? So that will make more sense. So customer. So from customer, you are selecting. Remember, I told us in Python Basic when we were selecting variable value with their index numbers. When we wanted to print only P, we use what? The name of the variable and what? 0, right? So always know that whenever you introduce this square bracket, you are about relating to only some value. That's what you want to select. Out of the whole value, you want to pick some. That's the meaning of what? Select. Then you will now concatenate the data set name, which is what? Customer again. Just understand the syntax. Dot what? Is now. Then add the bracket. Dot is now. Then you come outside it because we are concatenating another function that will help us to display only. Because if I stop at is now, it will display that one is just to give me what? To tell you whether we have missing value or not. Without displaying only those ones with what? Missing value. So I will now bring what? Any. And then if I run the any, I have to put what? As this is equal to what? 1. Just to indicate that I am setting across what? Rows. And then if I run it, you will see that what? It brought out only rows where you have at least one what? Missing value. We have it under what? H. And these are the only rows. So if you run this function now on that data 1 where we don't have missing values, look at what will happen, because it's very important. You don't assume that what? There's no missing value. You deliberately run it. Let it be that it output nothing. So that outputting nothing is a confirmation that what? There is no row where you have missing value. So let me confirm it on the other data. So if I copy here and I bring it here, Control V, and then I change the data set name. Okay, did not copy. Okay, the other one is what? Data what? Data 1. Let's manually apply it. Data 1, and then I change here also to what? Data 1. And then I also do what? Equals to. If you run it, it will tell you what is it saying here. Okay, yes, we did not close the parentheses bracket here before the square bracket. So you see that what? Let's see the results. There's still any other place where we need to adjust. And I copied it and paste. As is equals to 1. So let's go to the key error and check. Got what? Unexpected what? As is. So our spelling of what? As is not correct. So as is spelled AX and then X. So let's say it call out all the header without displaying what? Any value, which means that what? No missing value. So you now have rest of mind that All these are things we must run. Don't assume that they are not there. Which one?
All of them. So let's quickly look at how to describe your data frame, or data sets. Are you with me? So this particular function actually helps us to perform some statistical analysis. So I will not want to say it's part of data cleaning. It's partly data cleaning, partly analysis. But there are some metric we can actually get from it that denotes or which represent some of the things we have derived so far from the data cleaning. That is why I decided to bring it here. And the name of the function is what? Dot describe. So it's used to summarize your data set with a couple of statistical function, basic statistical function. Let's quickly look at it here. So the task is how to perform simple or basic stats function analysis using the dot describe function. Using the dot describe function. So what is the syntax? Syntax will be the name of your data set, also data set or frame name, dot to describe. So let me run it on that customer data. So I'll simply do customer dot describe. Customer dot describe. So look at what happened here. This is the count. It counted what? Under each. It counted 6 records that you have there. Under follower, it counted 5. You know why it's different? Because of what? The missing value there. The missing value. Now, there is one thing that happens here. Instead of acknowledging all the header, it only acknowledges only columns where you have what? Numbers. Have you noticed that? We have age, we have this, and then we have number here also, but these ones they are maybe floating. But it's supposed to capture this and this because they all have what? Integer or numbers under them. So by the time you run your own, it might capture more than this. Well, this is what is captured. But what I'm emphasizing on is this, that you are able to use this single function to get some of this what information. The minimum. This is the mean, the average. If you add all the values under each and divide it by the 6 of the record you have there, this is what you get. The same thing to what? To followers. The minimum, all the values under each, the minimum age is what? 19. These are some analysis questions they can ask you. What is the minimum age? So you can just run dot what? Describe, and then you get it. What is the maximum age? You also get it here. So these are some random percentage that it has what? Group it analysis on for you. So at times you can run them individually. I can do something like this, depending on the version of the Anaconda or the notebook you are using. So if I just say this dot what? Me. So you can actually apply them individually because they are updating them every day. So this was actually working where you can just run .me on the entire data set instead of what? The way describe, envelope them.
So it might work for you in your own Anaconda. But let me see, because it's the version issue now, this latest version, there are a lot of things that have been changed. So but look at it here. If I run it as an attribute, it's giving me a kind of breakdown that it might not really give me what I expected. So let me run it again, customer dot count, because that is what I'm trying to tell you, that we can actually run them individually if you don't want to run them what under describe. So this is for what? For counting. But it's not giving what I wanted. Let me try the counting whether it will work with this, like this. Good. Count 1. This is exactly what I'm trying to point out. Because I just called out only what the header and counted what the number of what to record. Do you understand it now? So I can let me try for data 1, right? Let's say what data 1 dot counts. So it counted. It counted. So now let me try it on data 1 dot minimum. I want to also check for what? Minimum. So it's work. So which means that what? This is the minimum age. This is out of the number of record you have there. Female are the least. That is the meaning of this minimum here. Yes. No. Under gender. So, out of the female you have there, you have what? You have male. Good. Then under blood type, there are more what? A plus. These are some analysis report you can put that you can tell that okay, after my analysis, I discovered that what? We have list of what? This and that. So if I want to run it on mass now, let's know whether it will capture male now. Yes. Since minimum was capturing what? Female. So I will do what? Data what? Data 1 dot what? Mass. So you can see that I know what it's doing. So what I'm trying to show you is that if you don't want to leverage on describe, you can see that even the describe is limited. The describe could not capture header with text. It only focuses on what? Headers with numbers. But running them individually will now make you to know what exactly you are looking for. So this is, but before I end this session, I want to talk about one. Remember that what the customer, look up here so that you can write and then we just close from here. Remember that the customer, if I run the customer dot customer, if I run the customer like this, just to view the value, you can see that we have what? LEA, right? Now, sir, if you are asked to add all the value here, total all the value here, an error will be thrown. Because when you get here, it will have issue in reading this. So this means in a sense that there was no value, which means what is equal to 0, right? So all you will do is this. You will just do customer dot fill now is another cleaning function. Fill now. Then you now say, well, anywhere you have not a value, give them what? 0. Are you with me, sir? So if I run it, check again, what do you have now? Anywhere you have what? 0. They have now been replaced what? Sorry, LAA. They are now what? 0. Now, but if you call that customer again, sir, if you call that customer again, you see that what? The NAA, they are still there. But I thought you said you have changed it. You have to resave with the same name. So what you do is that you take what generated these results now and save it with the same name. Just check what I'm going to do now to update. This is how you update your data now. This is how you override your data. Now, if you come here now, this is the result that generated what? This one, where you have replaced all the NAN with what? 0. Now, what you simply do is to repeat the same name. Because if you put this different name, it means that what? We are creating another copy. You now say what? Equals to. So if you run this now, so the whole of that edited copy is now in what? So if you run the customer again, you no longer be getting what? NAA. So the simple secret of updating, in case you make some changes, as we are running all this function. Just resave with the same name. Use the same name as a variable and store the function that generated the correct result as what? The value in that variable. Exactly.
So this is where